What is up, everybody? It is your boy Farai. Thank you once again for tuning into another video. So pretty much today I'm going to be showing you 3 tips on how you can take your mix to the next level. Alright, so if you're in that, stick around. Shout out Notification Squad. So I'll give you a case scenario before we hop on the computer. Pretty much I had recorded and mixed my track, uploaded it, and then a week later I'm demoing plugins, and I realized, damn, there are a few more things that I could have done to make my mix even bigger than what it already was. You know what I mean? So we're going to run through those techniques. Stick around, make sure to smash like, show some support so I can continue uploading, and write in the comment section below on what video you'd like to see next, as well as just say what's up. So let's get it. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at the 3 techniques that we have. So the first one I'm going to show you, we'll take a listen to what we have first. And the first technique is going to be pretty much making use of effect sends. I know a lot of people always ask me every week, how do I make use of effect sends? It seems like a whole mystery, and I think that is because you failed to study the traditional approach to analog mixing. When we look at a mixer, we have things called auxiliary sends, right? And those are essentially what these channels right here are. So the thing that we're going to be focusing on right now is our main vocal. We can use effect sends to really emphasize certain elements within the mix. So there are 2 types of auxiliary sends which I'll be showing you. One is the effect sends, and then the other one can be something which we can call parallel compression. Parallel compression is generally very dry, and it's meant to kind of add I would say punch to the original track, right? And then we've got sends which we can use to add 3D depth, things like reverbs, delays, and flanges. So the way I set this up, you can do this in any DAW, but the way you do it in FL Studio is I have my main vocal on this vocal chain track, right? And what I then do is I just click on another channel, okay? And then I have all of those channels routed to an effects group, so I could mute all of the effects if I wanted to. That second step is just, or the third step is not necessary. But essentially I've got my main vocal going into other channels. That's all it really is. And then all of those channels meet at the pre-master. You know what I mean? It's simple and sweet, okay? So what we'll do is we'll take a listen, and I'll allow you to watch the delays trigger. If we do have any triggers right there, we've got one right there. You can watch the delays pop in, but you can see that these tracks are pretty much duplicates of the main vocal, except they have effects on them. So let's do that.
I'm way too blunt, way too late, don't wanna talk. Been on my grind like Tony Hawk. Can't see you now, you in the dark. Can't break my heart, I got a lock. That boy's a op, he just gon' talk. I was so broke, I used to walk. Now I do not care what it costs. Gucci, Louis, buy it all, okay?
Alright, so there you go, right? So we've got a main vocal which has sends on it, okay? Simple and sweet. So the first trick I want to show you is adding parallel compression. I believe that this is important when it comes to very gritty vocals, right? So this track is kind of a hip-hop hard rock style mix in my opinion, and I wanted to keep that kind of vibe, right? So I learned this from Andrew Sheps, and what he likes to do is pretty much add a 1176 and a Pultec style EQ together. Now I switch them either or, depending on how the song is sounding and how the vocal's sounding. But the trick here is to overcompress the parallel track, right? Let's just get this over to the side here. And then what we want to do is we want to compress it. So that's that channel right there, right? We got that right there. These plugins are so damn huge. But yeah, so it's that channel right there, right? We've sent it. It's just a duplicate copy. But then what we do is we first compress it, right? So we'll put this on the top. We compress it. I'll allow you to see how much compression is happening.
I'm way too blunt, way too late, don't wanna talk. Been on my grind like Tony Hawk. Can't see you now, you in the dark. Can't break my heart, I got a lock.
So there you go. As you can see, we are compressing. And then what I do is I use a heavy EQ or a heavy amount of EQ to then boost 8K. And that really creates this radio ready sound in the vocal. It's almost like cutting to your head. That's the style of this track. Now obviously if I'm doing a more elegant sounding hip hop or R&B jam, I'm going to tone it down a little bit, alright? So it really just it's really depending on the mix that you have at hand here. So yeah, that's the first technique, parallel compression. Second to that would obviously be your reverbs, right? So right here I'm using an H3000 with this weird preset going on, but here's the reverb, right? I'm using this Eventide stereo room, and all that does is just add a bit of 3D depth. So if I was to turn up the reverb, you'd be able to hear.
I'm way too blunt, way too late, don't wanna talk. Been on my grind like Tony Hawk.
See, so that rectifier is really like 8-bitting, doing something weird to the reverb. If I was to turn it off, obviously I think we should rather do that. Let's turn off the doubles as well.
I'm way too blunt, way too late, don't wanna talk. Been on my grind like Tony Hawk. Can't see you now.
So that's that reverb right there. Obviously really aggressive. We're going for rock style effects in this mix, so obviously everything sounds a lot like kind of trebly and pretty heavy. But yeah, reverb is going to create that kind of sense of being in a room. It's very natural to the ear. You don't want to overdo reverbs unless you're doing, 2011 Drake style songs where the reverb is super long. It really depends on the track that you have at hand. All right, so delay triggers. I've done this quite a bit. I went overboard on using the H3000, but I like to mess with the delays a little bit. I don't just like having a dry delay, but what you need is the actual delay, right? So this is just the Waves H delay. Pick up some Waves plugins. Black Friday is coming up, definitely. Get the gold bundle. I always tell people get the gold bundle because it gives you everything you need. And yeah, man, I've got this trigger right here, so we can see it kind of pop in right here. So just pay attention to this automation clip.
I'm way too blunted, way too late, don't wanna talk.
So blunted.
Oh, she frontin'.
And that's it right there. Simple and sweet, okay? So yeah, we got the flanger as well, which is just a even side instant flanger, which works pretty well. And yeah, you can use any flanger you want. I've done this quite a lot on my channel, but it's essentially just our vocal being sent to a flanger, right? And that just creates an extra bit of depth. So yeah, that's what we got right there, man. Now second to that, I forget, so just give me a second. So second to that would be master bus processing. Okay, I see a lot of people ask me about mastering, so we'll answer that right now. So I do believe that you should leave mastering to a mastering engineer, but I look at traditional audio, and usually your audio would be summed, all right? It has to go through somewhere. That's generally what any pro mixer would do, is they would send their mix through a piece of analog gear, or if they're mixing on an SSL console, the mix will usually end up going to the bus compressor. That is still part of the mixing process, all right? So to me, it's important to create a nice little tone. Some EDM producers I know still to this day, they will mix to a limiter, they will mix to a certain compressor so that they can get a certain sound over time, if that makes sense to you. So my chain for this track, and then I'll just explain this process, it'll always change. That's why I don't really speak about mastering too much on my channel, because it'll always change depending on the track. Some tracks don't need it, some tracks benefit from it, some tracks will lose out when you add stuff on the master channel, all right? So what I like to do in this instance right here, I wanted to get a bit more of the kind of bass, that kick drum. I wanted the vocal to be a bit warmer, so I boosted a little bit right there just to kind of get this rounded, warm sound going on around 136. And then I wanted to poke the vocal out even more, so I boosted it at 3.2K or 3.3K. And then I just did a little bit of an air boost. Right now, I'm doing like 0.1 dB boost right here, not a lot. Right, if that's 6 dB, I'm doing 1 dB boost, 1.5 dB boost, 1.5 dB boost. You don't want to be doing too much on the master. From there on out, because I like solid state logic, I am mixing through the SAN 3 compressor, which is an emulation of the SSL bus compressor. And the cool thing about Acoustica, my bad, is that it comes with many different emulations of different bus compressors. So Waves, for example, will only have modeled one compressor, all right? And then they would have done stuff to kind of give it like a overall sound. But what I like about this is it has all the modeled parameters, right? We've got our attack, release, and that kind of thing. But you've got the power to actually model the different compressors, the different preamp styles or circuits in this case. So yeah, and then I blend this in parallel. I don't want the full effect all the time. Remember, because we're at the mastering state, I don't want too much of everything. So if you just want to watch what's going on here, I'm compressing a little bit in parallel, meaning that it's blending the wet and dry signal, wet being the affected signal.
Oh, she frontin', switchblade shit, nah, bitch, I ain't running. Smoking on blunts, I'm way too blunted, way too late, don't wanna talk. Been on my grind like Tony Hawk. Can't see you now, you in the dark. Can't break my heart, I got a lock. That boy's a op, he just gon' talk. I was so broke, I used to walk. Now
So it does something very, very, very minimal. Because we're adding a bit of gain, we get this blend between the compression and the dry signal, and it just does something, all right? To me, that sounded good at the time, and I left that. So UAD, definitely great for master grade stuff, definitely these two plugins. So Pultec again, I am doing quite a bit of boosting at 4K. I really wanted to get this rock sound going on with the mix, rock and metal mixes. They always have this like aggressive treble, you know what I mean? It kind of sounds like, in your face. So I did a 4K boost, and then I did a bit of attenuation at 20K, and I did a heavy bass boost to get that hip-hop 808 to stick out. But what I did again was, because it was such an aggressive amount of EQ, I blended it in parallel. That's the beauty of FL Studio. You can actually blend inserts, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's what I did there. And then I used the Mandy passive, which I added actually post-releasing this track. I'm demoing this, and I just like $300 is a lot of money to pay for a plugin, but I probably will buy this plugin. But what I'm doing with this Mandy, man, what I've learned about this Mandy is you can do a lot of boosting with it, and not change the level in a weirdly drastic way, So what I'm doing right here, we'll go from bottom to top. Let's do that traditionally. So we've got 100 hertz boost, right? So we're boosting a bit of the bass, and then I'm doing a bit of boost again at 120, you know, I'm really just boosting with this plugin to get this beautiful tone out of it, you know, so 680, you know, just to fill out all of these spaces in between the frequencies, if that makes sense, you know. So what I'll do right now is I'll turn off all of these plugins, and then we'll just take a listen.
Know she frontin', switchblade shit, nah bitch I ain't running. Smoking on blunts, I'm way too blunted.
You know what I mean? So we don't really get that three-dimensional sound when we turn everything back on.
Know she frontin', switchblade shit, nah bitch I ain't running. Smoking on blunts, I'm way too blunted. Way too late, don't wanna talk. Been on my grind like Tony Hawk. Can't see you now, you in the dark. Can't break my heart, I got a lock.
You know what I mean? Just reminds me of like, you know, good old 2003 or whatever rock mixes, you know. So last of that, man, I like using the L1 to just boost, alright? And I just get level out of the L1. I really like the way it does something to the treble. It's really beautiful. And then I just use a hard clip limiter. Just so I use the native limiter usually. If I'm using Pro Tool, I'll use Maxim at the end of the chain. I just for some reason believe in using native software to do the hard limiting. So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. So the last tip I have for you is just a bonus, but I urge everyone out there to get more into using analog modeled plugins within your plugin chains. Right now, that doesn't mean you have to have paid plugins. You can use free stuff. Analog Obsession makes some really good free stuff. You know, so for example, we'll run through a few of the plugins I'm using in the mix. You know, I mean, if we look at the flange as an analog modeled plugin, you know, the SSL is modeling a J series SSL. So it's as if I'm sending my vocal to the SSL. You know, and then I use, you know, the SSL on both the beat and the vocal, and then that way it kind of, you know, starts to sound like I'm mixing on a console, you know. So you get into this philosophy of modeling what has traditionally been done, and you end up getting, you know, much more closer results to some of your favorite records, you know what I mean. You could just use digital plugins. I mean, Noah 40's done this for years with Drake's records. But one thing you always need to understand is a lot of these records are being recorded with very high-end equipment, all right? So they already have the, you know, Drake uses a Sony C800, so that's where they get that analog tone. So if you don't have this expensive gear, what you can do is you can model it with free plugins, you know what I mean? And you get into this zone of you know, learning about how things were done traditionally, and then you can apply those to your mixes, you know. So again, I've got the, you know, omnipressor on the vocal bus. I just love it to compress, you know what I mean? I've got again the SSL. On the master, obviously we've got our bus compressor, we've got our, you know, manly EQs, the tube modeled equalizer, you know, we've got our pull tech. You know, you learn these things over time, so I urge you to go and research more about all the gear that exists. So yeah, man, this is a bit of a longer video, but you know, hopefully you learned something, and I'll check you out next time. Peace out.